The cargo freighter had been dead for 3 days when Danny Reyes found it. It drifted through the neutral zone like a metal ghost, its lights dark and its engines cold. Danny guided his small salvage ship closer, scanning for signs of life or danger. He found neither. "Looks clean," said Kira Lawson from the co-pilot seat. She was young, barely 22, with curious eyes and hands that were still learning the controls. Danny had taken her on 6 months ago when she needed work and he needed help. She talked too much and asked too many questions, but she learned fast. Danny studied the readings on his screen. The freighter was a standard Kovathi transport vessel, probably abandoned after an engine failure. Kovathi ships carried valuable tech that human colonies would pay good money for. A find like this could keep them fed for months. "We go in careful," Danny said. His voice was quiet and steady, the kind of voice that came from years of staying calm when others panicked. "Stay close. Touch nothing until I check it." Kira nodded and grabbed her gear bag. She had learned not to argue with Danny when he used that tone. They docked with the freighter and moved through its empty corridors. Danny walked ahead, his footsteps silent on the metal floor. He was a big man in his mid-40s, but he moved like smoke. Kira had noticed this about him early on. For someone who claimed to be just a salvage operator, Danny Reyes moved like a predator. The cargo hold was their target. Danny pried open the doors and swept his light across the space inside. Crates lined the walls, sealed with Kovathi security locks. Danny knelt beside one and began working on the mechanism. "This is a good haul," Kira whispered. "We could retire on this." Danny did not answer. His hands had stopped moving. His head tilted slightly, listening to something Kira could not hear. "Danny? What is—" The lights came on. Kira spun around and found herself staring at the barrel of a plasma rifle. The creature holding it was reptilian, covered in dark green scales, with teeth like broken glass. More of them emerged from the shadows, 10, 15, 20 armed soldiers surrounding them from all sides. "Drop your tools," the lead creature hissed. "Hands where we can see them." Danny rose slowly. He let his tools clatter to the floor and raised his hands. His face showed nothing. No fear, no surprise, just calm acceptance. Kira's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. "Danny, what do we do?" "We do what they say," Danny replied. "Stay calm. Stay quiet." The lead Kovathi stepped forward. He was larger than the others, with scars crossing his snout and golden rings pierced through his eye ridges. When he smiled, it was the smile of something that enjoyed causing pain. "I am Vexter," he announced, "captain of the Crimson Fang, and you are now my property." He gestured to his soldiers. "Search them. Take everything." Rough hands grabbed Danny and Kira, pushing them against the wall. The mercenaries stripped away their gear, their tools, their emergency beacons. One soldier found the chain around Danny's neck and yanked it free. Dog tags dangled from the end, military identification from another life. The soldier glanced at the tags, then tossed them to Vexter. The captain examined them briefly before dropping them into a pouch on his belt. "Human military," Vexter said with amusement. "Retired, I assume. Now reduced to picking through garbage like a scavenger. How the mighty fall." Danny said nothing. Vexter leaned close, his breath hot and foul. "Your kind thinks it rules this galaxy. But out here, in the spaces between your precious colonies, you are nothing. You are meat to be sold and bones to be discarded." He straightened and addressed his crew. "Take them to the holding cells. This one looks strong enough for labor markets." He pointed at Danny. "The female is young. She will fetch a good price in the Dominion." Kira's legs nearly gave out. Slave markets. She had heard stories about what happened to humans taken by raiders. Stories that kept colonists awake at night. "Please," she gasped. "Please, we have money. We can pay ransom." Just let us. Vexter backhanded her across the face. She crashed to the floor. Tasting blood. Danny moved. It was just a twitch, a shift in weight, a tightening of muscles. But every mercenary in the room suddenly had their weapons aimed at him. Something in that small movement had triggered an instinct in them, a warning from deep in their predator brains. Danny relaxed. His hands stayed raised. His expression remained empty. Vexter studied him with new interest. Interesting. There is something in you, human. Something you are hiding. He waved his hand dismissively. No matter. You will tell us everything soon enough. Take them away. The soldiers dragged Danny and Kira through the freighter's corridors to the mercenary cruiser docked on the other side. The ship was massive, for war and intimidation. Crimson symbols marked its hull like bloodstains. The holding cell was cold and dark. The mercenaries threw them inside and sealed the door. Kira collapsed against the wall, tears streaming down her face. We're going to die, she sobbed. Or worse. Danny, we're going to... No. Danny's voice cut through her panic like a blade. He sat down across from her, his back straight, his eyes sharp. Listen to me, Kira. We are not going to die. We are not going to be sold. I need you to trust me. Trust you? We're prisoners on a ship full of killers. I know. Danny's voice was impossibly calm. I have been in worse situations. Kira stared at him. In the dim light of the cell, Danny Reyes looked different. The tired salvage operator was gone. Something else sat in his place. Something cold and patient and very, very dangerous. Who are you? She whispered. Danny did not answer. He closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the wall. Outside the cell, a young mercenary named Torask examined the confiscated items from the prisoners. He picked up the humans' dog tags and turned them over in his clawed hands. Standard military identification. Name, rank, serial number. But beneath the name, there was something else. A small symbol etched into the metal. Torask did not recognize it, but something about it made his scales prickle with unease. He decided to investigate further. Torask had survived 30 years as a mercenary by trusting his instincts. Those instincts had kept him alive when younger, stronger fighters died screaming. And right now, those instincts were telling him something was very wrong. He stood in the communications room, watching Yeel work at the database terminal. Yeel was an insectoid creature with 6 arms and compound eyes that never seemed to blink. He was the Crimson Fang's intelligence officer, responsible for tracking bounties, identifying targets, and avoiding trouble. Run it again, Torask said. Yeel clicked his mandibles in annoyance. I have run it 3 times. The result is the same. The serial number on these tags links to a classified Terran military file. Access is restricted at the highest level. A salvage operator with classified files? It does not make sense, Yeel agreed. His many legs twitched nervously. I can try to crack the encryption, but it will take time. And there may be consequences. The humans do not like when outsiders dig into their secrets. Torask turned the dog tags over in his hands again. The symbol beneath the name bothered him. It was simple, a circle surrounding what looked like a shepherd's staff. He had never seen it before, but something about it felt familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare. Do it, he ordered. I need to know who this human is. Yeel hesitated, then began working. His 6 hands danced across multiple keyboards, pulling data from black market contacts and underground networks. Minutes passed. Torask paced the room, unable to shake the feeling that they had made a terrible mistake. Finally, Yeel stopped. His compound eyes went wide. His body became very still. What? Torask demanded. What did you find? Yeel slowly turned to face him. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. The human's call sign is Shepherd. The word hit Torask like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, catching himself on a console. His heart raced. His scales went pale. "That is impossible," he breathed. Shepard is a myth. A story humans tell to frighten their enemies. "The file is authentic," Eo said. "I verified it through 3 separate sources. Danny Reyes, former operative of the Terran Special Operations Unit, designated Watchman. Active service record spanning 15 years. Confirmed eliminations numbering in the hundreds. Specialization in hostage rescue, target extraction, and..." He paused, swallowing hard. "And the complete destruction of enemy organizations." Torask felt sick. Every mercenary in the galaxy knew the stories about Shepard. They passed them around like ghost tales, each version more terrifying than the last. There was the story of the Velen Syndicate, a criminal empire that controlled half the Outer Rim. Shepard had dismantled it in 6 months. Not just defeated, erased. Every leader dead. Every base destroyed. Every record burned. There was the story of the slaver compound on Nexus 7. 40 human children taken for sale to the Dominion markets. A single operative walked through the front gate. By morning, the children were safe, and every slaver was dead. The compound security footage showed one man moving through the facility like death itself. And there were darker stories. Stories about what happened to those who hurt innocents in front of Shepard. Stories that mercenaries told in whispers, afraid that speaking too loud might summon the monster they described. "We need to tell the captain," Torask said. Now, he found Vexter in his quarters, drinking Kovathi wine and counting the credits they would earn from selling their prisoners. The captain looked up with irritation when Torask burst through the door. This had better be important. "Captain, the human we captured. He's not a salvage operator." Torask's voice shook. "His call sign is Shepard." Vexter stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. "Shepard? The human boogeyman?" He took another drink. "Torask, I expected better from you. Those are children's stories. Propaganda created by Terran intelligence to make their enemies afraid. The files are real, Captain. I verified them myself. This human has killed more beings than our entire crew combined. He has destroyed organizations larger than ours, without support, without backup, alone." Vexter's laughter faded. He studied Torask's face, seeing genuine terror in his old friend's eyes. After 30 years together, he had never seen Torask afraid. "Even if the stories are true," Vexter said slowly, "he is one human. We are 40 armed warriors. He is locked in a cell with no weapons, no tools, nothing. What exactly do you expect him to do?" Before Torask could answer, Eel's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "Captain, you need to see this. I am receiving a warning message from a black market intelligence broker. It is addressed specifically to us." Vexter frowned and activated the view screen on his wall. Text appeared, simple and direct. "You are holding a prisoner designated Shepard. Release immediately. Do not engage. Do not negotiate. Do not delay. This is your only warning." The message was unsigned, but at the bottom was a symbol, a circle surrounding a shepherd's staff. Vexter crushed his wine glass in his fist. Blood dripped from his palm, mixing with the dark liquid. "Someone is trying to frighten us," he snarled. "I will not be intimidated by human tricks." "Captain, please," Torask begged. "We should release them and run. This is not worth our lives." "Our lives?" Vexter rose to his full height, towering over his second-in-command. "We are the Crimson Fang. We have raided 100 ships. We have killed 1,000 enemies. I will not flee from one human locked in a cage." In the holding cell, Danny Reyes sat with his eyes closed. Kira watched him nervously, trying to understand what was happening. For hours, he had not moved, had not spoken, had barely seemed to breathe. Then, slowly, his lips curved into a small smile. "What?" Kira asked. "What is it?" Danny opened his eyes. In the darkness, they seemed to glow with cold light. "They finally checked my records," he said quietly. "I was wondering how long it would take." "Your records?" "Danny, what are you talking about? What is happening?" Danny turned to look at her. For the first time since their capture, Kira saw something human in his expression. Something almost like kindness. "I was not always a salvage operator," he said. "A long time ago, I did things for Earth's government. Bad things to bad people. I stopped because I wanted peace. A quiet life. But some reputations follow you forever." "What kind of reputation?" Danny did not answer directly. Instead, he tilted his head, listening to the distant sounds of the ship. "The engines are changing pitch," he observed. "They are increasing speed. That means the captain is scared but stupid. He is running instead of surrendering. Running where? Probably to the Dominion border. Terran ships cannot follow there." Danny stood and stretched, moving like a man waking from a pleasant nap. "That gives us about 6 hours before my friends lose the ability to help." Kira scrambled to her feet. "Your friends? What friends?" "Danny, please, tell me what is happening." Danny walked to the cell door and examined the lock. His fingers traced the edges, testing the mechanism. 6 hours, he repeated softly, more to himself than to her. Plenty of time. Word spread through the Crimson Fang like fire through dry grass. Within an hour, every mercenary on the ship knew they had captured the Shepherd. Some laughed and called it nonsense. Others grew quiet and checked their weapons. A few quietly updated their wills. In the crew quarters, arguments broke out. Veterans who had served for decades traded stories about what they had heard. A young soldier claimed his cousin had served on a station that Shepherd had raided. His cousin was the only survivor, found 3 days later, whimpering in a storage closet. He never spoke again. Another mercenary, a scarred female named Kethra, silenced the room with her own tale. She had worked security for the Velen Syndicate years ago. She had been off station when Shepherd came. By the time she returned, there was nothing left but bodies and ashes. "One human did that?" a young recruit asked, his voice trembling. Kethra stared at him with empty eyes. "I saw the footage before it was destroyed. It was not a human. It was a demon wearing human skin." On the bridge, Vexter monitored their course toward Dominion space. They would reach the border in 5 hours. Once across, Terran military vessels could not follow without starting a war. The prisoners would be sold, the credits would flow, and this Shepherd nonsense would become another story to laugh about. Torresk entered the bridge, looking worse than before. His scales had taken on a grayish color, the Kravathi sign of extreme stress. "Captain, we have a problem." "Another one?" Yiel intercepted Terran military communications. "They know we have the human. A strike cruiser called Valor's Edge is pursuing us at maximum speed." Vexter felt a chill run down his spine but refused to show it. "How do they know our location?" "Our stealth systems are the best in the sector." "I do not know. But they are tracking us precisely. Current intercept time is 4 hours. Then we outrun them. Increase engine output to maximum. I want every drop of speed this ship can give." Torresk hesitated. "Captain, the crew is frightened. I've heard talk of mutiny. Some want to release the prisoners and surrender." Vexter spun around, his eyes blazing with fury. "Mutiny? Let them try. I will gut anyone who challenges my authority." He stepped closer to Torresk, lowering his voice. "We have valuable cargo. The female alone will earn us a fortune. I will not throw that away because of ghost stories. And if the stories are true, then we kill him. He's flesh and blood, Torresk. He can die like anything else. In the holding cell, Danny had not moved from his position near the door. But his eyes were open now, watching, calculating. Kira sat in the corner, hugging her knees to her chest. "You still have not told me who you really are," she said quietly. Danny was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. "I was a soldier. A long time ago. I did things that most people cannot imagine. Things that needed to be done but should never be remembered." He paused. "When I left the service, I swore I would never go back to that life. I wanted to be ordinary, to fix broken ships and sell scrap metal and forget what I was capable of. But you cannot forget. No." Danny looked at his hands. "These hands have done terrible things, Kira. I have killed more beings than I can count. I told myself it was for a good cause. To protect innocence. To stop monsters. But sometimes I wonder if I became a monster myself." Kira studied him carefully. In the dim light, she could see the weight he carried. The exhaustion that went deeper than physical tiredness. The burden of 1,000 memories he could not escape. "Why did they call you Shepherd?" she asked. Danny almost smiled. "Because I protected people. When human children were taken by slavers, I brought them home. When colonies were threatened, I stood between them and danger. A shepherd guards his flock. That was my purpose." That does not sound like a monster. Monsters rarely see themselves clearly. The cell door suddenly hissed open. 2 armed guards stood in the entrance, their weapons raised. "A human," one growled. "Captain wants to see you." Danny rose smoothly to his feet. "Stay here," he told Kira. "Do not worry. Everything is going according to plan." "What plan?" she demanded, but the guards were already pulling Danny out of the cell. They escorted him through the ship's corridors. Danny memorized every turn, every door, every access panel. His mind worked constantly, building a map of the vessel, identifying weaknesses, calculating routes. The bridge was large and cluttered with equipment. Vexter waited at the center, surrounded by armed guards. He studied Danny with cold curiosity. "So you are the famous shepherd," the captain said. "The human that makes grown warriors soil themselves in fear." Danny said nothing. His eyes moved slowly across the room, taking in every detail. Guard positions, weapons, exits, the layout of the control consoles. "I have heard the stories," Vexter continued. "The invincible human, the one-man army, the angel of death." He laughed harshly. "But I see only an old man in dirty clothes. Where is your power now, Shepherd?" "You have about 4 hours," Danny said calmly. "A Terran strike cruiser is tracking this ship. When they catch you, every member of your crew will be arrested and tried for piracy and slavery. The penalty is death. We will reach Dominion space before they catch us. No, you will not." Something in Danny's voice made Vexter's confidence waver. The human spoke like someone stating a simple fact, not making a threat. "Kill him," a voice shouted from the crowd of guards. "Kill him now before he does something." Vexter raised his hand for silence. "If I kill you, the Terran Navy will hunt us forever. But if I deliver you to the Dominion as a prize, they will protect us." He smiled, showing all his teeth. "You are worth more alive, Shepherd. So I will keep you breathing until we cross the border. Then you become someone else's problem." Danny nodded slowly, as if this was exactly what he expected. "Your choice, Captain. But remember, you have 4 hours. What happens before then is up to you." The guards dragged Danny back to his cell and threw him inside. The door sealed behind him. Kira rushed to his side. "What happened? What did they want?" Danny sat down calmly. "The captain is arrogant. He thinks he is safe because I am locked in here." He glanced at the ceiling, where a small maintenance panel sat in the corner. "But I have been in worse prisons than this. You have a plan." It was not a question. Kira could see it in his eyes. The calm certainty of a man who had already won but was waiting for the right moment to prove it. "I always have a plan," Danny said. "Now we wait. When the time comes, I need you to stay hidden and stay quiet. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens." "Can you do that?" Kira swallowed hard and nodded. Danny closed his eyes and leaned back against the wall. To anyone watching, he looked like a man sleeping peacefully. But inside his mind, every detail was clicking into place. Every step of what would come next was perfectly clear. The shepherd was preparing to move. The lights in the holding cell flickered. It was a small thing, barely noticeable. But Danny opened his eyes immediately. He'd been waiting for that signal. 3 hours had passed. The mercenary ship was deep in FTL transit, racing toward Dominion space. The crew was exhausted from fear and tension. Guards who should have been alert were tired and distracted. It was time. Danny stood and moved to the corner, where the small maintenance panel sat in the ceiling. During his transfer between cells earlier, he had passed close enough to touch a similar panel in the corridor. No one had noticed when his fingers brushed against the access screws. No one had seen him palm a thin metal strip from the panel's edge. Now he used that strip like a tool, carefully removing the screws from the cell's panel. Behind it was a maze of wires and cables, the ship's nervous system. Kira watched in silence. She had promised to stay quiet, and she kept that promise even as her heart pounded with terror and hope. Danny studied the wires for a moment. His hands moved with surgical precision, rerouting power from one system to another. A soft click echoed through the cell as the electronic lock disengaged. "Stay here," Danny whispered. "Hide in the corner. Do not move until I come back for you." Kira nodded, pressing herself into the shadows. Danny pushed the cell door open and slipped into the corridor like smoke. His bare feet made no sound on the metal floor. His movements were fluid and silent, the practiced grace of a predator who had hunted far more dangerous prey than sleeping mercenaries. 2 guards stood at the end of the corridor, their backs turned. Danny moved behind them so quickly that neither had time to react. 2 precise strikes to the base of their skulls sent them crumpling to the floor, unconscious before they knew he was there. Danny took one of their weapons, a compact plasma pistol, and checked its charge. Then he moved on. The ship's internal layout was clear in his mind. He had memorized it during his walk to the bridge. Now he navigated through the vessel like a ghost, avoiding patrols, slipping through maintenance hatches, always moving toward his first target, the engine room. 2 engineers were on duty, monitoring the FTL drive that pushed the ship toward safety. Danny entered through a ventilation shaft, dropping silently behind them. They never saw the fists that knocked them unconscious. Along with the ship's engines, Danny went to work. He did not have tools, but he did not need them. Years of training had taught him how to disable any system with nothing but his hands and knowledge. Within minutes, he had sabotaged the FTL drive in ways that would not be obvious until it was too late. He also planted a surprise in the engine's secondary systems, a time malfunction that would activate in exactly 30 minutes. Next was the weapons control room. Danny took a longer route this time, circling through the ship's lower decks to avoid the heavily guarded central areas. He encountered 3 more mercenaries along the way. Each one fell without making a sound. The weapons room was staffed by a single technician, a nervous creature who spent more time watching the door than monitoring his screens. Danny came through the ceiling vent and had the technician unconscious before the door ever opened. He disabled the ship's main weapons and shields. Not completely, that would trigger alarms. Just enough to create critical failures when they were needed most. 20 minutes had passed. Danny checked his mental clock and moved toward the most dangerous part of his plan. On the bridge, Vexter was growing impatient. They were still 2 hours from the Dominion border, but the Terran strike cruiser was closing fast. Every few minutes, Yale updated him on the pursuing ship's position. "They will intercept us in 90 minutes, Yale reported, his voice tight with fear. "Then increase speed," Vexter snarled. "We are already at maximum, Captain." "The engines cannot." Every light on the ship died at once. For 3 seconds, the Crimson Fang was blind and silent, drifting through FTL space without power. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in dim red. "What happened?" Vexter roared. Yale scrambled at his console. "A power surge. Unknown origin. Systems are rebooting," but he stopped, his compound eyes going wide. "Captain, we just dropped out of FTL. The drive has failed." "What?" "Sabotage. Someone has sabotaged the engines. We are dead in space." Vexter's blood went cold. He grabbed his communicator. "Security team, report." "What is happening?" Static. Then a shaky voice responded. "Captain, we have found 6 crew members unconscious in the lower decks. No injuries, but they will not wake up." "And Captain," the voice cracked, "the prisoner, the human, his cell is empty." The bridge fell silent. Every mercenary looked at the captain, waiting for orders, but Vexter could not speak. The stories he had dismissed as propaganda suddenly felt very real. "Find him," he finally managed. "Every soldier on this ship. Find him and kill him on sight." The hunt began. 40 armed mercenaries spread through the ship, searching every corridor, every room, every shadow. They moved in groups. Too frightened to go alone, It did not help. Danny moved through the ship like a force of nature. He did not fight fairly. He did not give warnings. He appeared from ventilation shafts and disappeared into maintenance corridors. He used the ship's own systems against its crew, venting atmosphere from sections, triggering false alarms. Cutting power to entire decks, a squad of 6 mercenaries swept through the cargo bay, weapons ready. The lights went out. When they came back on, 3 soldiers were unconscious, and the others were screaming into their communicators. A patrol of 4 hardened veterans moved through the engineering section. A ceiling panel dropped on the leader. By the time the others turned to help, Danny had vanished, leaving 2 more bodies on the floor. Tarask found his best warriors, 3 killers, with decades of experience, lying in a corridor, breathing but unresponsive. There was no sign of a struggle. No blood. Just 3 deadly fighters who had been neutralized without firing a single shot. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. "I surrender," he said to the empty corridor. "I surrender, please." A soft voice came from the shadows. "Smart choice. Go to the cargo bay and stay there. Tell anyone you meet to do the same. Anyone who puts down their weapon will not be harmed." Tarask did not need to be told twice. He ran. Words spread quickly. One by one, mercenaries began abandoning their posts. Some fled to the cargo bay. Others locked themselves in their quarters. The hunters had become the hunted, and every shadow held the promise of death. In 30 minutes, Danny had broken the crew's spirit without killing a single one. He stood outside the bridge doors now. Inside, he could hear Vexter screaming orders to soldiers who no longer answered. The captain's voice was high with panic. Danny checked his weapon one final time. Then he heard something that made his heart freeze. Kira's voice crying out in fear. The bridge doors opened. Vexter stood at the center, his hand wrapped around Kira's throat. A blade pressed against her skin, drawing a thin line of blood. "There you are, Shepard," Vexter hissed. "I knew you would come for her. Humans are so predictable." Danny stepped onto the bridge, his weapon raised. But his eyes were on Kira, seeing the terror in her face. "Let her go," he said quietly. "This is between you and me. No." Vexter pressed the blade deeper. Kira whimpered. "This is between you and your precious flock." Drop your weapon or I paint this bridge with her blood. Danny's finger rested on the trigger. At this range, he could kill Vexter before the captain could react. But the blade was already against Kira's throat. Even a dying reflex could end her life. Slowly, Danny lowered his weapon. Good, Vexter smiled. Now we negotiate. Danny stood perfectly still. His weapon hung at his side, useless. Across the bridge, Vexter held Kira with a blade against her throat, his eyes wild with desperate triumph. You see, Shepard, the captain said. You are not invincible. You have weaknesses like any other creature. You care about this female. That makes you predictable, controllable. Danny said nothing. His eyes moved slowly across the scene, taking in every detail. Vexter's grip on the blade. Kira's terrified breathing. The angle of the captain's body. The distance between them. Here is what will happen, Vexter continued. You will repair our FTL drive. You will disable whatever beacon you have been using to lead the Terrans to us. And then you will walk into an airlock and remove yourself from my ship. And if I refuse, then I kill her, slowly, and I make you watch. Kira made a small sound of fear. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the blood from the cut on her neck. Danny let out a slow breath. When he spoke, his voice was calm and conversational, as if he was discussing the weather. Do you know why they call me Shepard? Vexter frowned. What? You asked before, on this bridge, where my power was. You said you only saw an old man in dirty clothes. Danny took a small step forward. Let me explain something to you, Captain. Stay back. Vexter pressed the blade harder. Another line of blood appeared on Kira's throat. Danny stopped but kept speaking. A shepherd does not hunt wolves for sport. He does not seek out danger or chase glory. His only purpose is to protect the flock, to keep the innocent safe from those who would harm them. I do not care about your human philosophy. You should, because when a wolf takes one of the shepherd's flock... Danny's eyes locked with Vexter's. Something in those eyes made the captain's blood turn to ice. The shepherd stops being a protector and becomes something else entirely. You cannot reach me before I kill her. I did not have to. Danny glanced at the view screen behind Vexter. Look outside. Against his better judgment, Vexter turned his head. A massive Terran warship hung in space directly ahead of the Crimson Fang. Its weapons were armed and glowing. Its hull bore the name Valor's Edge in bold letters. And it was close, so close that Vexter could see the individual guns pointed at his bridge. Your weapons are offline, Danny said. I disabled them an hour ago. Your shields are down. I sabotaged those too. And the emergency beacon I activated the moment I escaped. My cell has been broadcasting our position ever since. Vexter's face twisted with rage. You tricked me. You let yourself be captured on purpose. No, being captured was bad luck. Everything after that was planning. Danny's voice hardened. Now let her go. You have lost, Captain. Your only choice is whether you lose with dignity or in pieces. The bridge communication system crackled to life. A woman's voice filled the room, calm and commanding. Mercenary vessel Crimson Fang. This is Captain Lena Morrow of the Terran strike cruiser Valor's Edge. Lower your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. You have 30 seconds to comply. Vexter's hand trembled. The blade wavered against Kira's throat. His empire was crumbling. His crew had abandoned. His ship was helpless. Everything he had built was falling apart because of one human. No, he growled. No, I will not be remembered as the captain who surrendered to a single human. If I die, I take your precious flock with me. He pulled the blade back to slash Kira's throat. Danny moved. It was too fast for the eye to follow. One moment he stood across the bridge, The next he was there, his hand closing around Vexter's wrist like a vice. The blade stopped an inch from Kira's skin. With his other hand, Danny struck Vexter's elbow. The joint bent the wrong way with a sickening crack. The captain screamed and released both the blade and his hostage. Danny shoved Kira aside, putting himself between her and the wounded captain. Then he finished the fight with brutal efficiency. 2 more strikes left Vexter broken on the deck, alive but unable to move. Whimpering in agony, Danny stood over him, breathing slowly. For a moment, something terrible flickered in his eyes. The urge to finish what he had started. To make this creature pay for every innocent he had ever harmed. Then the moment passed. Danny stepped back. "You get to live," he said quietly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I promised myself I would stop being the monster that kills when killing is not necessary. Consider it a gift you did not earn." The bridge doors exploded inward. Terran Marines poured onto the deck, their weapons sweeping for threats. They found not only a broken captain and a human, standing calmly among the wreckage. Captain Lena Morrow entered behind her soldiers. She was tall and sharp-featured, with gray hair cut short and eyes that missed nothing. When she saw Danny, her stern expression softened into something like relief. "Danny Reyes," she said. "I should have known you would handle things yourself, Lena." Danny nodded to her. "Thank you for coming. Like I had a choice." The moment your beacon activated, half the fleet started mobilizing. She surveyed the unconscious mercenaries being dragged away by her Marines. "You did all this alone?" "I had motivation." Danny turned to where Kira sat against the console, shaking with shock. He knelt beside her and spoke gently. "It is over. You are safe now." Kira looked at him with wide eyes. "You could have died. When he had that knife to my throat, you could have just let him go. Escape by yourself. No." Danny shook his head. "That was never an option. You are part of my flock now, and I protect my flock." He helped her to her feet as medics rushed to check her wounds. Lena walked up beside Danny, watching the Marines work. "Retirement does not seem to suit you. I was doing fine until trouble found me. Trouble always finds you. That is your curse." She paused. "The fleet could use you back, Danny. There are still wolves out there. Still innocents who need protecting." Danny was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Kira, at the young woman who had trusted him even when she did not understand. At the Marines who carried out the wounded without unnecessary cruelty. At the stars that stretched endlessly beyond the viewscreen. "I am not that man anymore," he finally said. "I spent 15 years being the shepherd, hunting monsters, becoming something that frightened even me. I cannot go back to that life. And if trouble finds you again?" Danny smiled faintly. "Then I will handle it. But I will not go looking for it. Some people need protecting, Lena, and I have never been able to walk away from that. But I can choose how I protect them. I can choose to be better than the wolves I hunt." Lena nodded slowly. She understood. She had known Danny Reyes for 20 years, had seen him at his best and worst. If he said he was done, she believed him. "Take care of yourself, Danny," she said. "And the girl. She seems like a good one." "She is. Better than she knows." Hours later, the Valor's Edge escorted the captured mercenary vessel back toward Terran space. Vexter and his surviving crew would face trial for piracy and slavery. The evidence was overwhelming. They would never threaten anyone again. Danny stood at a viewport, watching the stars slip past. Kira joined him, moving quietly to his side. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we go home. We fix ships and sell scrap and pretend today never happened." "Can you really do that? Go back to being ordinary after all this?" Danny considered the question. Out in the darkness, somewhere far beyond the light of any star, Mercenaries, enslavers, and pirates were sharing stories. Word would spread through their networks like poison. The shepherd was still active, still dangerous, still protecting his flock. Some would be frightened. Others would be foolish. And someday, trouble would find him again. But that was a problem for another day. "I can try," Danny said. "That is all any of us can do." Kira smiled and leaned against his shoulder. They watched the stars together in comfortable silence. Two survivors heading home to whatever peace they could find. And across the galaxy, in shadowy stations and hidden bases, a warning passed from voice to voice. "Don't leave the humans alone. The shepherd is watching."